Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Creative Cow tutorial. And in our ongoing look at learning Avid's Media Composer and Symphony, let's continue our look at the Marquee title tool going by talking a little bit more about texturing our titles. I gave you a brief little introduction to it a couple of lessons ago, but I wanted to get more in depth and show you how you're really going to be able to get in and control the textures that you apply to your titles, and how you're going to get in and be able to do more to them than you think that you really can do. Okay, short introduction here. Let's just get into Marquee and let's get started. Okay, now actually before we get into Marquee, what I do want to mention is that if you're going to be downloading textures to work with inside of Marquee, your own customizable textures, you're going to want to create a folder on an external drive and save them all into one location and don't move them, because Marquee is going to remember where those textures are going to be saved to, and it's always going to go back to, if you import one of them, it's always going to go back to that same location. So you don't want to be breaking those links. And now I'm going to show you what I mean by that in just a second. But what I'll do here, as you can see, I'm going to hit Windows E on the keyboard. I'm just going to come to my recent places, into my textures folder, and you can see I have one for brushed metal, I have one for grass, and I have one for an old brick wall. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to Alt-Tab into Adobe's After Effects, and let's just create a new comp here. We'll just make it 960 by 720, and I'm just going to import those three textures right here. I'm going to say Open, and why don't we just start out with old bricks, because it happens to be right down here at the bottom. And the effect I'm going to use just to show you that they are seamlessly tileable is Motion Tile, a fantastic effect that I like to use all the time here. And all I'm going to do is just adjust the output width and the output height, and you can see this is completely seamlessly loopable. So let's do the exact same thing with the grass here. I'm just going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac. We'll just swap that out here. There we go. There's the grass. Now to see this element without the motion tile, there we go. Seamlessly loopable. And of course, last but certainly not least, let's take that brush metal. And again, I'm going to hold Alt on the keyboard. Just drag it and drop it. Now obviously this texture is much smaller. So if I come in, I just adjust the output width, the output height a little bit more. You can see it's not the best, brush metal, but you know what? I'll take it for right now. Okay, so let's get into Marquee and let me show you how this is going to work. So I'm going to Alt-Tab into Avid's Symphony. Now again, I'm doing this tutorial in Symphony. Everything I'm going to show you is going to work exactly the same inside of Media Composer as well. Okay, so let's come up to Clip. Let's come down to New Title. And of course, we're going to use the Marquee title tool. Okay, let's just make sure that we are in basic mode, which we are. Let's just adjust our frame here. And I'm going to come up to View. We'll show all the buttons. There we go. Very nice. And let's create some text to texture. What I'm going to do is just type in, let's just type in text. Why not? Seems quite appropriate in this case, I think. And again, what we're going to do here is we're just going to turn on our safes. We'll just increase the size of our text, but I'm going to blow up the size of the bounding box first here. Let's just increase the size. There we go. And we'll just position everything up just like such. Very nice. And of course, I'm going to use my favorite font, Impact. There we go. We can even increase the size a bit more. And of course, now what we're ready to do is to extrude our text. So what we're going to do is navigate right down here to the Transform Properties. I'll come to Effect. And of course, I'm just going to grab the extrusion depth and just extrude it way out. And of course, we're not going to see any proper depth on this until we enable lighting. As soon as I enable lighting, you're going to see everything pretty much disappears. Reason being is because if I come over to my lights, you'll see there's the light there. But what I want to do is come to Views. I'm going to come down to View, and I'm going to say Show me the layer top. Now, in most cases, there's really two shortcuts you're going to want to remember, which is Control and numeric pad 8 and Control and numeric pad 5. So if I actually come out of that drop-down menu and I hit Control and numeric pad 8 and Control and numeric pad 5, you'll see it switch from the scene view to the top view. Now what I'm going to do is just readjust the frame here, and you'll see that that light is actually sitting right in the middle of the text. That's why if I come back and take a look at it in the scene view, that's why we can see sort of the edge of the text here, but not really anything on the face. So all I'm going to do here is just switch back to the top view, and let's just rejig our frame here. And I'm just going to grab that light and just bring it out here, like such. Now if I switch back, I should be able to see my text, no problems. Okay, so let's just talk about applying just standard regular textures to our text. Now before I do that, I do want to mention something else that I haven't mentioned before, and that is right now I'm just doing a big, bold, in-your-face extrusion. But we do have the option of going in and adding in some edge properties to this text that we haven't done up until this point. And how we do that's actually actually very easy. Right down here, you'll see we were talking about the extrusion depth right here. Well, right above that, I have the option for the edge, and right now it's set to default, which of course default is none. You'll see that I can spin that up, and you'll see that I have all of these options here from bevel, bevel ridge, bevel wide, boxes, chisels. And you can go through and take a look at what each one of these do. But what I'm going to do is just choose the standard bevel. Now, you'll see it's given a bevel to my text. If I want to adjust that, I can simply just grab the size and adjust it like such. Very nice. Now, this is going to come into play in just a second. I just want to throw it in there just so that you can see it. Now, Marquee comes with some textures included with it, and how we find them is very simple. Inside of the Styles library, now if the Styles library is not open for you, you can simply navigate up to Window, come down to Library, and you'll see them right here. Styles, Materials, and Textures. And of course, what we want to use is the Textures tab. So let's navigate over to Textures, and you're going to see in here we have a whole bunch of textures that we can use. And I'm just going to pick one here at random. Why don't I pick, I don't know, red brick? Sure. I'm just going to drag it and drop it right onto the text just like such. And you'll see that I've applied it to each one of the characters together. They've actually been applied universally over all of the text. What I'm going to do is just undo what I just did, because I also want to show you that I can actually select individual characters and apply text to just those, just like such. So you do have the ability to get in and have more finite control over the textures that you're applying to your text. Now, I'm just going to undo what I just did there because I actually do want to apply it to everything in here. So let's just deselect everything. Again, I'm going to select all of text, and we'll just choose that red brick again. So I'm going to apply red brick, and what I want to do now is I actually want to get in and rotate this text. Again, a couple ways we can do that. One of the ways to do it is with the Transform Properties window right here, Rotation Y. But what I like to do is come up to my Rotate tool, which is the shortcut R on your keyboard, and I actually like to work this way. Now the only problem is, of course, as soon as I start to rotate, again, that light is in the wrong position. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to right-click in my scene, and I'm just going to add another light right there, light number 2. So let's come down to views. Again, we're going to go to the top view. I got to get into that habit of using the shortcut. Since I'm the one that's always big on shortcuts, I got to get into that habit. And there's light 2. We're just going to bring it right over here to the front. Let's use the shortcut here to get back to our main window. Control and 5 on the numeric pad for all of my Windows friends. Command and 5 on the numeric pad for all my Mac friends out there. And I just wanted to be able to see the edge here. Now you see we got a bit of some weirdness going on because the texture looks right on the front face of the text. But as soon as we get to the side, it gets all weird and wonky and stretched, which is absolutely not what we want. Well, here's the first thing. In most cases, I'll be honest with you, I really don't use the textures inside of Marquee very much. Why? Because I like to use my own. And that's why I have those 3 textures that I saved out as an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to come up here, and you'll see that I have some user textures appropriately enough. What I'm going to do is right-click and say, give me a new texture. Of course, Marquee is going to prompt me and say, well, what texture do you want to use? And of course, I'm going to use my old bricks. I like to have some old bricks as opposed to these new, fancy, sexy bricks that we have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take old bricks. I'm just going to make sure that I'll just apply it to the T here, just for argument's sake here. And I'm just going to take old bricks. I'm going to drag it and drop it onto the T. Well, let's actually drag it and drop it onto the T here, old bricks. Here we go. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Perfect. I applied it to the E as well. That's okay. I'm just going to actually undo that just so we can apply it just to the T here. Apply it over there. There we go. But you'll see we've got that same problem going on with this texture. It's not exactly doing what we want it to do. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come down to my properties. I'll come down to my light. We're going to get into the lighting in one of the upcoming lessons. But what I want to do is just increase the brightness just so you can see what's going on. Because we've got a bit of a problem. And you'll see what happens is that when we get to here, for some reason the stonework just stretches and it doesn't look right. You'll see on the face it looks okay, but here it looks horrible. And you know, most people at this point, they look at this, they're like, this isn't working right. I don't like this. I'm going to do something else. And they'll say, I'm going to go to After Effects and do it in After Effects. I'm going to do it in whatever plugin I happen to be using. You don't need to get frustrated, and you don't need to switch applications. There's just a little bit of thought that's required into getting this texture to look the way that you want it to. So let's talk about that. Now, we seem to have properties for everything. So you would think that we'd have properties for the textures, and it's not actually the textures that we have the properties for. It's surfaces that we have the properties for. So what I'm going to do is navigate up to Window. I'm going to come down to Properties, and I'm going to come to Surfaces. You'll see I'm now in the Surface Properties. Now what I want to do here is, since I applied this to just the T, I want to select just the T, and actually what I should probably do is I think I'm just going to apply this to everything. Well, let's just come in here. I'm just going to take old bricks. We'll just apply it to everything. So everything's applied universally. Now you see again, we have the exact same problem here with this, the texture stretching on the X, stretching on the T at the end, stretching on the T at the beginning. And you'll see inside the surface properties, we have a few things that we can adjust. But before I get in and talk about all the other things that I can adjust, I want to fix this problem with this texture stretching, which it shouldn't do. Well, what's actually happening is that the texture is getting to the edge of its frame, and it doesn't have anything else to give to Marquee. So what Marquee is doing is taking those last pixels and just stretching them out to fill the rest of the element. When really this is a tileable element. I know that this is seamless. I just showed it to you in After Effects. So all I have to do is tell Marquee that this is a tileable element. And guess what? We've now just fixed that problem very quickly and very easily. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is that you'll also see, and I think I'm just going to rotate this element back a little bit here, just so we have a bit of a better look at it. Just rotate it. Now, you'll see those bricks, they don't quite look right. They kind of look big and fat, and I'm not really happy with them. Now, that light I got to get rid of here, because that light is just annoying me now, because they're both pretty much sitting on top of each other. So let's just delete that. There we go, much better. And what I want to do is I want to get in and I want to adjust the size of these bricks because they're kind of huge and they don't really look right. Maybe maybe they're a little bit too tall. Maybe they should be a little bit wider. And it's actually something that's very easy to adjust. What I'm going to do again is select the text because I have that one texture applied to all the text. And right down here at the bottom, you'll see I have a couple of options. The first option I have is to offset. Now, offset in the X means I can slide that texture back and forth on the X-axis. Now you're going to see that as I'm doing this, it's got the texture applied to the face, it has it applied to the edge, and it has it applied to the extrusion. You'll see in 3 separate places. And as I adjust it with the offset, it's adjusting it on all 3 of them. Same thing with the Y. Now, of course, that being said, with offset, what I'm going to do is just set everything back to 0 here just so that I can keep track of what I'm doing in my own head. What I can also do here is adjust the scale of the texture. You'll see I can make those bricks very small. That actually looks much nicer. And if I wanted to, I could get in and actually make an adjustment and say, you know what, I think this texture is a bit too tall now. Maybe what I'm going to do is just crush it down a little bit by making the Y scale a little bit smaller than the X scale, just like that. This is now starting to look very nice. And of course, when I take the element and I rotate it, like I said, this texture has been applied to the face, to the edge, and to the extrusion. And of course, if I threw another light in there, you can actually see it right there, looking very nice. But of course, this of course does bring up another problem. I have one texture that's applied to the face, to the edge, and to the extrusion, which really is not what I want. And just for kicks, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my other textures here. I'm just going to I'll just bring surface properties down here for a second. And what we're going to do is we're just going to right click. We're just going to say new texture. I'll just bring in the grass texture. Double click on it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new texture. I'm just going to bring in the brush metal texture. Why not? We'll just bring all 3 of them in just so we got them. Like I said, you could conceivably have as many textures as you want in here, ones that you know that you're going to be going back to all the time. So what I want to do is I want to get in, and just for kicks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the old bricks to the face, which it already is. I'm going to apply the grass to the extrusion, and I'm going to apply the brush metal to the edge. Why not? I have the ability to do it. Let's just do it. Okay? So what I think I need to do here is I'm just going to rotate this back. I'm just going to add that light back in here. I'll just add light. Again, we're just going to switch to the top view here. That's Control and 8 on the numeric pad. Command and 8 on the numeric pad for all my Mac friends. We'll just bring the light right over here like such. Again, we'll just switch back. Control and 5 on the numeric pad. For Windows, Command and 5 for all of my Mac friends on that numeric pad. Okay, so let's get in. Let's add this grass texture. Now, what most people think they're going to do is they're going to take the grass and they're going to drag it and drop it just like this. The problem is, as you see, what happens is as soon as I drag it and drop it, it applies that grass to the entire text. It actually kind of looks pretty cool with the grass on there. And that's not what I want. I want to just apply it to the extrusion. So let me just undo what I just did there. Well, what we're going to do is we're not going to drag it and drop it like that. We're heading back to our surface properties. Again, we want to select everything here. And you're going to see that right now we have the main surface enabled. And you'll see that I can bring my mouse right over top of that main surface. But what I can also do is bring my mouse over top of the edge. I can also bring my mouse over top of the extrusion. Very cool. Well, hang on a second. You would think that if I could bring the mouse over the face, over the edge, and over the extrusion, I might actually be able to take, I don't know, let's say the grass, and apply it to the extrusion just like that. You'll see, of course, because I haven't told Marquee that this element is tileable, what I can do is just come down and say, you know what, that's tileable, and there's that grass. Well, you know what, that grass is a little bit too big. Why don't we set the scale to be 50 and 50? That's actually looking much better. Now, obviously, I would never do this in a real-world situation, but you get what you see where I'm going with this. How you can get in and you can apply your textures very quickly to the face, to the edge, and to the extrusion of your elements. Now, of course, I said I was going to take that brushed metal and I was going to apply it to the edge. So let's just do that. Very cool. And again, I can get in. I can adjust the offset. I can adjust the rotation if I wanted to. But you see, getting in and applying textures to the face, to the edge, and to the extrusion is very quick and very easy to do. What I could also do if I wanted to, let's just say hypothetically, you know, I wanted to get in and instead of having this as an image, I wanted to just have this sort of gray color stretch all the way back. No problem, I can do that. Let's select our extrusion. Let's come up to the type, and we don't want to select a texture. Maybe we want it to be a gradient. Maybe we just want it to be a solid color. Maybe I just want to take the eyedropper and I want to eyedrop this edge color so that I can send everything back looking exactly the same. So you'll see you can get in and you can make, you know, adjustments, whether it's a texture, whether it's a solid color, whether it's a gradient, very quickly and very easily inside of Surface Properties. Now, one last thing that I do want to show you that's very important for you to keep in mind when you're working, and I'm just going to close this for a second. I'm just going to delete this text here because, you know, I did say that, you know, this is how you would get in and apply this to text, but text isn't necessarily the only thing that you're going to want to apply this to, and let me show you what I mean by this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some text, and maybe we'll just type in, why not, let's type in creative cow. And of course, you know, I have to come in and use my favorite font of impact. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to use that grass texture. Why not? Because I want that brick texture for something else that I'm going to create. So let's just adjust the size here. Creative cow. And of course, we're going to come down to effect. Let's adjust our extrusion depth. Let's make sure we enable lighting here. And of course, what I'm going to do is come back here to my user textures. I'll just add the grass, drag it and drop it on there. And there is our grass. Now, of course, because you'll look again here, if we rotate this, we don't have this as being seamlessly tileable, so let's get in, let's adjust that. Of course, we're going to do that in Window, inside of Properties, inside of Surface. There we go. We want to make sure that our element here, let's just switch back to our selection tool here, we're going to want to make sure that the element on the face is tileable. There we go. Very cool. Because this is being applied to everything universally. And of course, again, if we rotate this, there we go. Very nice. But what I want to show you is this. That's actually not what I wanted to show you because we just talked about that. And I wanted to show you, and like I said, you don't need to necessarily just apply textures to text. And here's what I mean by that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another element to the scene. I'm just going to zoom back by hitting Control and minus on Windows, Command and minus on the Mac. And I'm going to create a plane, just nothing but a basic square. I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard so it creates it as a uniform square. Just like such, and you're going to see that it applies the last texture that it remembered, which is the grass texture, but I don't want to apply the grass texture. What I want to do is I want to apply the old bricks texture. Now I want to apply old bricks, and of course what I'm going to do now is once I have the bricks applied, I'm going to come back to my surface properties, because this is like, you know, the bricks are too huge. I want to make this a lot smaller. I want to make this about, oh, I don't know, 20 and 20, so they're nice and small, just like such. What I want to do now is I want to switch back to top view by hitting Control and 5 on the numeric pad. Hold on a second here. By hitting Control and 8, sorry, on the numeric pad. Obviously Command and 8 for all of my Mac friends out there. And what I want to do here, and actually let me just switch back here for 1 second. I don't even need to actually switch to the top view. What I'm going to do is just come to Transform here, and I'm going to adjust the position here on the Z value here. And we're just going to move it way back, and that light is exceptionally annoying here. And let's just switch to our lights for 1 second, just so that I can get rid of one of them, because two of them is too much. Just delete the light. There we go. That's much better. And what we need to do here is just sort of cheat things a little bit by sending this back in the stacking order. We're just going to send it backwards here. It's looking pretty good. And we can zoom back in here. And that light, again, a little bit too bright, but you sort of get where I'm going with this. What we can do is we can create very cool scenes. And I'll just adjust its position here. Just like that. I'm going to zoom in here. And what's important to keep in mind is that how I'm doing this is I'm using the safe title and safe picture as my reference for what is on the outside of the frame. And we can take this light, and I'm just going to switch it over to a spotlight here. And you can see now that we now have a very cool look. And let me actually just grab my, there we go. And you can see positioning. There's the wall, there's my text. Let's just undo what I just did so I can move this right out here like such. We'll switch back to front view here. And you can see that I can get in and have this light shine on either the creative cow and then have it shine right through to the background. And you can see that adding that texture into the background just helps add that extra little bit of realism to this scene. So remember that. Applying textures doesn't necessarily mean applying them only to text. You can really apply them to any surface that you can create inside of Marquee. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.